This week on GarageCast, we speak to longtime friend and client Jason White. He is Sam's drug dealer in the form of motorcycles at Fay Myers over there in Denver, Colorado. Jason talks to us about the history that he's had, long sordid history in the powersports industry, his move into auto, and now a product that he's creating called One Dealer Lane. Stay tuned for Jason White with Fay Myers. This is a show for anybody that has something that they want to say. It's going to be full of people with a lot of energy, CEOs, OEMs, vendors.
Best practice ideas in this industry and of neighboring industries.
We're talking to people that are on the cutting edge of processes, management.
Serial entrepreneurs, authors. We really have a feast of all different types of senior level people.
A cornucopia, as it were.
A plethora, maybe. Grab a pen, grab a cup of coffee, and have a seat. Start writing. This is GarageCast.
Welcome to GarageCast. We've been chasing this interview for years. I mean, years. How many years have we been asking?
Finally, we got a date. I guess that's what it takes. Only 40 motorcycle purchases later, Tony, we get a date.
We were sent to booking agents, publicists. Get with my people, and could never nail him down.
Usually he's on the private jet when we're trying to wrangle him. So
this week's episode of GarageCast, we are interviewing longtime friend, longtime loyal client, operator of, there's all kinds of shit that you do, Jason White. So I'm just going to say, off the get-go, it's Jason White with Fay Myers, the managing partner of Fay Myers, but there's so many other titles that you have. You've been the GM for many years that we'll get into on that, but what are the other titles that you're operating with the Champ family?
Oh, I hold currently Vice President of Champ Automotive Group, Vice President of Financial Services, which really is our warranty products and our finance offices. That dealership group is a one price, one person, 1 hour concept. So it's a little bit of a unique dealership structure. And then I'm also helping drive One Dealer Lane, which is a powersports software. I sit on the board of A to Z Sync, which is our automotive software, which is currently powering the Amazon shopping experience online. And then I help out with Year One Agency, which is our products as well.
Got it. I've experienced the one price, one person, 1 hour several times. Works well. It's actually really cool. The amount of training and learning that somebody has to go through to get to that point. I think it's pretty spectacular. And to the point, what he's saying is that, you get to the dealership to buy your vehicle, and you are met with a representative that takes you soup to nuts. And they not only do the test drive and show you the numbers, but then they turn right back. They turn their hat around and they're doing F&I numbers, and they're the ones who shake your hand, throw you the keys, and off you go. So pretty cool stuff.
Well, and honestly, we've seen iterations of that tried in powersports. I know you have been trying to move that into powersports for a decade now. We've got guys, Carson Baker and Dave Ritchie, who've included F&I and salespeople together. We've got Tony Audino, who's been on the podcast talking about his, how he's got guys just as excited to sell a helmet as they are a motorcycle. So I think we're going to get into all of this, and obviously One Dealer Lane we want to touch on a little bit more as we get along down the road here. But hey, thanks for being on, man. For those of you who've heard me talk about my motorcycle drug dealer, here he is. I don't know how many bikes I've bought from you guys, but it's been a number of them.
That's awesome. All right, Jay, like I said, we've all known each other for 20, 23, 25 years now. So I want to go all the way back to a conversation you and I had in an airport somewhere 15 years ago. We were sitting there talking, having a drink, and we were waiting on our flight to go home. And you all of a sudden just looked at me, you're like, have I not told you about my younger days and kind of what's up? And I'm like, well, no. And so let's get into your childhood, wherever you feel comfortable starting, and then walk through all that stuff and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, this is going to be tough. So going way back,
yeah,
I was a really challenging child. Mom and dad had divorce, went back and forth, between parents, different custody battles. And I would say, more than challenging. I have some children that are paying me back for that now. But anyways, I was doing things I shouldn't be doing pretty much everywhere, terrorizing everywhere I could, teachers, babysitters, whatever it was. And got sent off to military school in 8th grade. So I one day came home and my dad put me on an airplane and we flew out to the middle of Kansas and landed. And I'll never forget, a gentleman by the name of Sergeant Major Housley was waiting for me. And he was a former Green Beret, running a military school. And he walked me up and said, "Oh, we saved the barber for you. We're going to shave your head day one. Here we go."
Did you know this was happening, or did your dad just say, "Hey, let's go on a road trip"?
My dad said, we're going to a military school. Yeah, he said that on the plane, which all I can envision was Taps. When I was a kid growing up, you watched the movie Taps, and I was scared shitless. And landed in the middle of the night, drove to the military school, and this, beast of a man met me there and walked me up, and this old barber put me in a barber chair and literally shaved my head. Which, when you're a child, that was like traumatizing. And they left a small patch in the front. And he said, "That's so you can tell the front from the back, son." And he said, "Welcome to military school." And I got put in a bunk bed, and I spent military school. I spent the next 4 years in military school, and summers in Fort Sill doing ROTC and jumping out of helicopters and doing different things. So actually was probably the best thing in the world for me. Structure and discipline was embedded right away. My first year, I was a cocky kid and I was a new boy rat, as they called us. And I never forget, getting my first blanket party was week 1. Got people visiting me to adjust my attitude.
As in the soap bar of soap in the pillowcase, bang, 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 kind of blanket party.
100%.
Oh, dude.
I had 2 of those in the first month of my existence in military school.
How many has Zach had since he's been working for you?
He gets them daily.
That's
Perfect.
awesome. Hey, were you thinking at that time, like, because best thing that could happen to you, process structure, were you thinking maybe military career, that's where I'm going to go at that point?
Yeah, initially I was leaning towards going into the military. That's where a lot of people end up going. I had some great friends that end up going to the Air Force Academy and go on and be, tremendous pilots and other things in the Air Force. The last year, my dad and the school got in a fight, and I ended up getting pulled out of military school and dropped back into regular public school in the middle of Scottsdale, Arizona. And if you don't know, when you're 17 years old and you've been in military school with a bunch of boys in the middle of Kansas, you go back to Scottsdale and you get dropped into what I would call a wealthy school district. I struggled even more immensely at that point. So going from a classroom that was 15 to 18 kids that was called to attention every day and everyone was quiet and focused and paying attention, and dropped into a school with a lot of beautiful young women and other things going on around me, that it was another challenge in my life that I struggled tremendously to get through. Father and I kind of didn't see eye to eye, and ended up in the middle of the night packing my stuff up and running back to Denver to my mom's house. So, and that my dad flew up here, picked up my car, and said, "You want to be a man? Be a man," and took everything away from me. And I was at my mom's house with nothing, and there it started. Had to find my way.
Picked up your car. Was this the IROC Z?
No.
Oh, was that a little bit later?
At that time, it was a Nissan 240 SX.
Nice.
A white one. Yeah.
I figured with the swagger and all, it was the IROC Z, but I can see the 240 working.
Yeah.
So there you were, right?
Yeah.
You had to figure it out.
Yeah. Started, I found a job. It's kind of funny, in the newspaper back then. And it was to be a manager in training. And I signed up for it. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. They're going to pay me $325 a week to be a manager in training. And really what it was to be a frontline cook with a manager title. So I went to Domino's Pizza and started becoming a Domino's Pizza manager in training. And so went through that whole piece, didn't actually, so getting pulled out of military school and then going to Arizona, and I went to Scottsdale Community College at night. So during the day, I went to regular school. In Arizona, you had to pass Arizona history and a bunch of other things. When I got to Arizona, I actually had more credits than everyone in Arizona because we were doing 8-9 classes a day in military school. But when you transitioned to Arizona, you had to get certain classes knocked out before you could graduate. So I could have graduated in 3 years. But I had to go to Arizona history and a few other classes you have to check off. So I did that. And then I was going to Scottsdale Community College at night, getting ready to go to college. And I wanted to go to Arizona State University. That was kind of my goal. And then my dad and I had a falling out and moved up here and started getting in the restaurant business and had to work my way backwards to actually finish to get my diploma from high school. So I did everything the worst way possible. So got into restaurant management. That was a struggle. Went from Domino's Pizza to Church's Chicken and ran a chicken joint and got in more trouble again, just kept going out and partying at night and doing different things and being on my own. And then eventually, after getting in trouble a few more times, I found my way to become a bank teller. And I was a bank teller of a very small credit union on Buckley Air Force Base. And you had to get military clearance to get on the base to work in the credit union. So I went through all of that. And a gentleman by the name of John Uchida, who was the president of the bank, which had a total of like 6 people. I was a teller. And the good part is he took me under his wing and started teaching me more about finances. So I got into, I was a vault teller, and then he started teaching me about new accounts and 401ks and retirement accounts, and then we teach you how to do loans. And so I went through this whole process because it was very small. And then he moved and became a vice president of business development for a larger credit union. And I followed him. And I got into a new credit union called Space Age. And Space Age was serving DFAS, Department of Military Finance and Accounting, for a long time. So met the president at that time. His name was Grant Hackman, which was a former retired Air Force test pilot. He took me under his wing and started having meetings in his office. He would tell me to read the Wall Street Journal first page, and I'd come in his office and sit, and he would talk me through finance and what they're talking about and why, and teach me about stocks. And
when was this time frame, Jason? What year?
Oh gosh, long time ago, Sam. I got to think about this. 1990, maybe 91.
So
right.
Coming out of military school, coming out of being a wild kid, whatever, were you just feeling like fish out of water, an imposter syndrome, or were you like, no, this is where I need to be right now? Like, where's your head in all this?
I really struggled coming out of military school. It gave me such structure and kind of a why of what I'm doing and why. And, I did very well in military school. I was the youngest first sergeant in school history. I was the youngest company commander in school history. And then I went all the way to battalion command and got busted. Stayed out one night with a girl, of course, and got busted all the way back down and had to go back to military school and work my way back up. But it gave me structure, and then going to Arizona, absolutely no structure and lots of things were challenging for me. And then moving to my mom's house, I was going to the club and rebelling the whole way. But I learned to balance the two. I think I fall back on the military school gave me a tremendous amount of structure. The military structure is a business structure. And, Tony talks a lot about the fire department, kind of what it processes, it teaches you. Military school taught me a ton about many things around business, which was, I think, very helpful. I just luckily ran into a gentleman at the credit union that took a liking to me. And, I realized that I needed to find a career path, and they invested in me. They started they used to have credit union schools, kind of like what you guys do with Garage Composites. They had a league, it was called, and we would go to credit union school. So I went to Lending 101 and retirement accounts. You learn all this stuff, and then management of a branch. And I went to, 4 or 5 classes, and really my goal was to be a bank president. That's what I wanted to do at one point. And that was what I envisioned this as, the bank president had a company car. He was on a golf course all week playing and making money. I was like, this is what I want to go do. And then I bought my first motorcycle on my own, new motorcycle. I should say I bought many motorcycles along this time, when I was getting in trouble, I had motorcycles all the time. I grew up riding, and I bought a motorcycle in 1993 from Mark Dukes, actually at Fay Myers.
What was it?
It was a 93 CBR 900RR.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Very
was
nice.
amazing.
Fireblade.
Yeah. Before they were Fireblades. Yeah.
Before they were Fireblades. That was an English term. That really didn't kick
only
off
in Europe. Yeah. They were only Fireblades in Europe at that time. Yeah. So bought that motorcycle, and I was still working at the credit union. I was interviewing for 2 vice president jobs, and I made it to the final 3 twice and didn't get the job. And I got called into the office from Grant Hackman, and he was my mentor, and he said, "Listen, you've done a tremendous job. You passed the oral, very well. You were in the top 2. The written, you did well. You did everything great, but you're not gray enough behind the ears." I looked very young, and I was young, but I even looked younger. And in banking at that time, the 2 jobs I was going for required someone with some salt and pepper and some experience. And, he said, "You're on the right path. Don't give up, but it's just not your time yet." Well, I was a young buck and I was full of fire, and I was like, fuck that. And I went on vacation, took a week off and went to Mexico. And funny story, got on back then you used to buy chartered airplane stuff. I don't know if you guys remember, like Apple Vacations or whatever it was. You find a cheap vacation to Mexico, and it included a chartered plane. And got on a chartered plane to Mexico, Cozumel, Mexico. And on that plane, I ran into a guy. His name was Jeff, and he was a VP of a very large finance company that was doing commercial lending. And we talked finance and shop the whole flight. Well, come to find out, the next day I see him at the pool in Cozumel, and he's wearing a Fay Myers t-shirt. And I'm like, "Oh, Fay Myers, I bought my bike there." He said, "Oh yeah, my brother-in-law is the sales manager." And I'm like, "Really? Who is that?" He goes, "Mark Dukes." I'm like, "That's who I bought my bike from." So we headed off on the Mexico trip, and we talked for a while and got on the airplane home, and we flew home, and Dukes met him at the airport to pick him up. And we laughed, shook hands, and I went back to work. And at this point I was mad, and I started interviewing at car dealers. And because of my job at credit unions, I was out setting up car dealers for indirect lending programs. And I was developing indirect lending programs at that time for credit unions with dealerships, automotive dealerships. I thought my path was automotive, but I really didn't like the automotive people. They were very shady at the time. And, I got to see it firsthand from the backside. And it kind of was like I didn't want to do it, but I kind of felt like I needed to go that direction because I wasn't getting a vice president job at a credit union.
Tony, you hearing this? You're hearing this? He's defending the auto, or he's not defending the auto side.
No, I'm not. I actually didn't like any of them.
Yes. Because in our 20 clubs, he's always defending the car guys, always. And by the way, that's now I know where the charter planes came from. Now I know why Jason always has to fly on the little charters.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
So
that explains it.
Yeah, that's good. So the next week, my phone rings and it's Mark Dukes. He's like, "Hey, Jeff mentioned you're looking for a job. We're looking for a finance guy at Fay Myers." And I kind of giggled. I'm like, "Fay Myers, a finance guy?" I'm like, "Well, let's give it a shot. Let's go over there and talk to him." So I met then at the time with the general manager, Lloyd Liebetrau, and Mark Dukes. And
and again, give us the year, because this was a time before F&I was even a thing in the power sports industry. So here you are coming from the financial world. You're about to drop into the 94, and we're talking about
95 range, yeah. And they had a guy that had been there a long time, and they had a relationship with a local bank. And, I was kind of early on in the indirect lending for dealers. I was seeing kind of the structure and what worked and what didn't work, and technology actually. When Cuddle was being built before it's what it is today, I was kind of involved in the early parts.
Tell our listeners what Cuddle is.
It's credit union lending. It's basically a conglomeration of the credit unions. They use a platform and technology to facilitate lending to automotive dealers, because banks traditionally were in all those automotive dealers directly, and credit unions wanted to compete in that space. When I first got into credit unions, we actually used to buy what was called lien journals, and we would find out who of our members bought a car that weekend or 2 weeks prior, and we would call them and try and refinance them. That was our jobs, was to try and recapture that business. And that was before lending got directly tied into automotive. So that's kind of where all that was. So when I interviewed with Lloyd and Mark, we had a couple interviews, and I was like, you know what? I don't really want to go to the car space, and I'm not sure if finance is the right gig. Maybe I should give this a shot and see if I like it. So I laugh about this today because I was a salaried employee and I was scared to death to be commissioned. So I go in there and I'm talking with Lloyd, and they want to put me on 100% commission because he was a diehard Lemco dealer, right? Everything's commission based, and finance was new. And I said, there's absolutely no way. I said, you're going to have to guarantee me at year end that I make $50,000. And finally, that was a tough road to hoe. He was like, I'm not going to do this. Finally, he said, okay, here's the deal. I will put you on a salary of $50,000 and we'll go from there. And I started working there, and I got in, and they had to buy computers. Computers were not a thing in the store very often there. I had to get some technology in place, and I'll never forget, I'm going to say 6 weeks in, maybe 8 weeks in, I get my assistant finance guy's paycheck, and he's on a full commission plan. And I have implemented all these changes, and his check is double mine. And I walked upstairs to Lloyd's office and I said, I need to see that commission plan. And the next 5 years was a game of cat and mouse of commission plans that I would blow out of the water and he would revamp. And I'll tell you this tremendously. And we went from, when I took over, I'll just tell you, Fay Myers finance department was doing like $65,000 a year in finance income. In my, I'm going to say 4th or 5th year, it was 1.9 million in revenue.
Damn.
And it was literally a game of cat and mouse where he was changing my pay plan multiple times because I was blowing it out of the water. We're adding products and changing structure. And I created direct connections to the credit union that I came from. And we were getting special rates, and we were really, really unique. And I got to see some really cool things. I mean, I got to meet, Ed, and attend some. I got brought into a 20 club meeting, which was my first time, because we had made such strides at that time. They're like, let's find out what's Fay Myers doing. What's the deal? And I came in, and all these owners were in a room, and I was like, what is this? And I got 9 million questions. And then of course, Lloyd didn't want to bring me back because everyone wanted to pull me aside, either hire me or pick my brain, which I didn't understand at the time. But I also got to see some, Mark Duke's probably one of the best. I've been around a lot of salespeople. He's probably one of the best sales guys I've ever been around in my entire life. A lot of great people came through Fay Myers, and a lot of great things happened. And I worked my way up, was finance manager for a while. We grew to five finance people and myself. We were doing, in the heyday, we did, I think, 3 months back to back, over 500 units a month. We were crushing it.
Damn.
Store was crazy good.
Think about that, Jason. You're 500 units a month, and you're talking about when you took over, they were doing 60 grand in F&I annually. And think of the volume, and 60 grand. It's a little hard to believe.
It's crazy, honestly, crazy to think about. But it's come a long way. Obviously, worked our way up, and then we, of course, had the great fire. We burned to the ground.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah, there was. I was one of 3 people in the building. We were on our, we used to, this is the crazy part. We used to close down for 2 weeks, over Christmas and New Year's, which that's no longer around. We used to actually close the doors, and we would pull all the bikes off the floor and paint the floor and redo the carpet and touch up the walls and prepare for the next year. And so the managers would work, but everyone else would be off, and we would do different things. And day one of coming back, I get in the store and I go up to my office and I'm hanging out and I'm working. At that time, our accounting guy, James Buck was there, and there was somebody else that was there. I think Tim in parts was there. And go in the door, go upstairs, and I'm hanging out, and it's cold and it smells like the furnace is going off. And I'm like, oh wow, the furnace really stinks. It's kind of crazy. And I keep working away, and I look up, and I'm like, we had big vaulted ceilings upstairs, and I'm like, that looks like a haze. Like that, is that smoke? I get up and I walk down out in the showroom, and I'm like, that's smoke. And I walk down, and James comes in, he goes, do you smell that? I'm like, yeah. And we walk downstairs, and we can't figure out where it's at, and we keep opening the side door where we come in and out. Well, that's fanning the fire, which we didn't understand, obviously, at the time. The fire was down from that spot into the parts department. And now people are starting to show up, and I'm telling everyone, hey, you need to stay out of the building. And we're trying to figure out what's that. And I walk down to the parts department, and the lights won't turn on. So I look out in the showroom of the parts department, it was a 3-level showroom. It's complete smoke. And I turn back around and I go past the parts department and I feel heat. And I'm like, oh shit. So I dial 911 at that point, walk out the building, and I walk out the door and I tell everyone to get out, stay out. And I turn back around, I'm gonna go get some stuff, and flames start shooting out the door.
You hadn't seen a single flame until that moment?
None.
Wow.
None. So complete devastation. Lost the entire store. And
some classic bikes too, didn't you?
Oh, lots of classic bikes, lots of great motorcycles. You know, the funny part, I talk about this back then, we had a lot of obsolete motorcycle inventory that we unfortunately moved out of the showroom to a warehouse because we were painting the floors over the Christmas holiday. So we didn't lose the stuff we wanted to lose. We lost the stuff. Yeah, it was terrible. It's terrible. And we were severely underinsured. One of the things that Lloyd had done over the years is, reduce cost. And something I learned from Lloyd a long time ago. He was a unbelievable penny pincher. He was very, very good at managing expenses. But he penciled our insurance to the bare minimum. And so I think they were 4 days in, they came in and wrote a complete check for the policy and said total loss and walked away. We were severely underinsured. Luckily we were saving some money over the winter or over the summer prior into the winter to do some expansion on that facility. And we had cash, luckily. And then we started our relocation process to where we're at today. And we had a fight with the manufacturer. We had unfortunate couple big fights because we had been there since 1948 at that location. And you couldn't rebuild the building because of new ADA laws. You couldn't build enough parking spaces. We didn't have enough parking spaces. And then relocation because of the new franchise laws was very difficult. So we got in a big fight with some manufacturers and eventually ended up out here and we leased to own a Hugh & Woods building and opened up out here and kept some other brands at the old store and tried to maintain 2 stores for a period of time.
So from out here, again, for our listener, you were in Lakewood on Alameda Avenue in Lakewood. And now the tech center at that time was still relatively new. You're south of Denver proper on the south side of town in an area that's become quite affluent. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, very much so. We were in Denver, is considered Denver, Alameda and Tejon, and moved to Arapahoe and Dayton, which is, when I was growing up as a kid, Arapahoe was as far south as you could go. So, and it was an old Hugh & Woods building that needed a lot of work. And, Lloyd and our construction guy did a tremendous job. They knocked out a building and put a building up really quickly, or retroed a building. And we opened up and had a tremendous, I'll never forget, grand opening. We sold 70 motorcycles signed and delivered on day one.
Gosh.
The future looked bright. I mean, it looked really bright. And that went on for that year. And then we had a 100-year snowstorm and we lost the building that we moved to.
What does that mean? We lost the building on a 100-year snowstorm?
So, all the Hugh & Woods buildings around town, the A-frames were not properly tied to the buildings. And we got a 100-year snowstorm, which put 6-foot drifts on the roofs. And all of a sudden it started to pull down all of the Hugh & Wood buildings, and we were in one, and it basically destroyed the building. And over a weekend, we lost the roof and were condemned out of the building. So we could not operate in the building whatsoever.
And were at that point, were you the general manager at that point?
No, I was the GSM at that point.
GSM. So you worked your way up. You were doing financing for hourly. Then you decided commission, and then you were in charge of all F&I. Then you moved into sales management. Talk to us about how you find yourself now, and then into ownership, and then into auto. Yeah.
So, I went from finance director into general sales management, and then started taking on. We had 3 guys at the time that were pretty strong. Mark had moved on, and I kind of slipped into his role a little bit, and then tried to grow some people to handle his loss. He was a big loss, obviously. I managed the sales department. I managed the advertising and certain sections of F&I. And then we had a parts manager that managed parts and service. And then we had another gentleman who managed kind of all of our legal and everything else that was going on. He kind of was our operational oversight guy. And we were, with the family being underinsured and losing the first building, moving down here, we made some promises that we were going to get a chance to buy in. And we got down here and we were trying to add Yamaha, and we bought Yamaha, and then Yamaha dealer near us blocked it, and we got in a big fight there and lost that deal. And then the store started to struggle because we had the roof collapse. We got in a lawsuit with that insurance company. We literally put a circus tent in the parking lot, and we were selling out of a circus tent, and we had to rebuild the building we were in. And at that point, the Myers family had had enough. They looked to get out. So at that point, they parted ways with the general manager. He retired, Lloyd Liebetrau. They elevated myself and the two other people into different roles as they were trying to transition. And then all of a sudden, everyone kind of came out of the woodwork and wanted to buy the store. So throughout my years, I'd made a lot of good friends in the finance side, and I became a guy that made an offer to buy the store. And I put an offer together one day when we were looking at our financial situation and seeing where we were going long term. Mr. Myers wasn't really interested in investing a whole bunch of money and starting over. So we went after and said, here's an offer to buy you out. Let's move on, and put an offer together. And that started the shopping process. He ended up shopping it kind of everywhere. I mean, the Ride Now guys looked at it. A gentleman by the name of Dave Linegar, who now owns some stores around us, looked at it. He's a big multi-billionaire. And quite a few other people looked at buying it, and it became a bidding war. And I agreed to purchase the store from him. And then my bid got bid all over the place, and I ended up losing out on the opportunity to buy. And at that time, the Shop Automotive group shared the same accountant we had. And Mark and Lisa had a vision of building a Honda superstore at one point. And so they were trying to buy a Honda motorcycle store and do a superstore. And so they decided to look at the dealership. So Mark and Aaron came in and interviewed everybody, and we were struggling along and looking at everything. And Mark and Aaron was fresh out of college, and came into my office or one of our boardrooms and interviewed all the managers. He said, I'm sure this is hard. You're trying to buy us. And I said to him, it's not hard. We need to move on. This has been a struggle for a while. It's a positive. So, I ended up losing out with my first offer. And then I met a gentleman that owned Chicago Cycle Center. If you guys remember a guy by the name of Russ Hahn, Russ and his son, I met at a dealer show as I was doing all this stuff. And they came back and said, hey, we want to come, buy Fay Myers. So I came back into the play to buy Fay Myers again. And we made a pitch to buy it and kept bidding the deal up. And it got to be a pretty, what I call a high number. Today, it's not a high number, but to buy into Fay Myers. And Champ ended up winning out. And I got a phone call. I was at a KTM dealer show, and Mr. Myers said, would you have dinner with the Champ people? And we had dinner with Mark and Aaron. And the next day I had breakfast with them, and they said, if we buy the store, would you consider staying? Which was great, because the store was not doing well, but through the interviews, they wanted me to be a part of it. And my comment to him was, I'll definitely consider it. Let me think about it overnight, and I'll get back to you. And at that point, I was interviewing to go to car stores again. And I love this place. I love the people that were here, and I wanted to fix it, and I knew I could fix it. So I went back to him and said, yeah, I'm interested in doing this. And at that point, Mark took over, bought the store, and like most car guys, they brought in all their experts. They brought in their fixed ops director, their sales director, and they brought him in the store and dove straight in, because it's just like the car business.
Yeah, man.
Just exactly.
Chrome suits and some Paco Rabanne cologne, and we're in business.
Pinky rings and gold chains.
Well, the good part is the shop organization is the complete opposite. So this is the part that, they're a one price, one person, 1 hour dealership group. Lisa was one of the original one or two ever to go one price in the early, I guess that would have been the early 90s. And they maintained one price. They're the only dealerships ever maintained one price with no dock fee, nothing else. And then, Aaron is the inventor of the single point of contact. He's the pioneer in that segment. And, Lisa was Time Dealer of the Year. Aaron's done tremendous things. They're on the 4th generation. And as a group, they're a unique car dealer. They have great reputation. They stand by what they do. So they were different. And I was interested in learning. So here we are, got into the stores, and I'll never forget spending days with these guys and learning how intelligent they were, and, then getting their perspective, and they'd come in the stores. And finally one day, Mark came in my office and said, "So the people I have here are kind of in your way, aren't they?" And I said, "They are, they are." So he pretty much moved all of them except for one guy who was Jay Andre, who's tremendous fixed ops guy. Learned a lot from him. He was an amazing guy. And we did a forward forecast of 5 years, and the store on paper was losing 7 figures when they bought it, with all the change and the lawsuits and the things we had with manufacturers and the insurance companies. It was losing a lot of money. And year 1, we almost broke even, and then we went on our way and started taking off and doing really well. And I was knee deep in year 20 clubs for a long time and learning from some of the best operators around: Doug Rudds, Rick Alcon, Robert Sistrunk. And I bounced around in a lot of groups. The Ride Now group I was in for a long time. I mean, Tyler Steimels, BJ, Paul, all those guys. Just learned from everybody. And I took pieces from everybody and just continued to apply it and got better and better. And the store just grew and grew and grew and made a bunch of money. And at that point, I had some opportunities to go buy my own store. And I sat down with Mark and said, "Man, I knew I could do this. I'm happy we were able to do this, but I need to go do something for myself. I gotta own something." And he said, "Would you give me a little bit of time to think about something?" And I said, "Yeah." So he went back and obviously worked out with his family and said, "I'm gonna give you an opportunity to buy in." And so I quietly bought in and didn't tell anybody for a long, long time, probably for, 6 or 7 years. Finished that piece and got ownership, and continued to grow the store and do good things. And they said, "We think we could use your help on the car side." So this was the first transition. They were in the midst of buying a store and said, "We want to take you to the car side." And I said, "I don't really want to go to the car side."
So Jason, was that hesitancy because you saw when they came in and how differently they ran the auto organization, or is it just a love affair with powersports? What was your hesitancy to jump back into auto?
It was a little bit of both. So that organization was going through a big transition. So Lisa was very influential in everything Sean, and then Mark was as well. And they're two very unique people. Lisa's an extraordinary visionary, and she sees things very, very well on the customer experience and, how to affect change that way. And then Mark is the absolute perfectionist when it comes to financial statements. The stuff I learned from that gentleman will live with me forever. I laugh about during the buy sale, we were 10 cents off on a financial statement submitting to Honda, and we spent 6 hours, the two of us, trying to find the 10 cents.
Are you serious?
and he drove home, and we took a break, and he got home and he called me. He goes, "I found it." And we would
Where
not
was
miss,
it?
we
You
were not
remember?
going to, yeah, he found the 10 cents. We are not going to submit this financial unless it balances perfectly. And you take what Lloyd taught me, which was, I'll never forget spending $100. I thought Lloyd was going to kill me when I spent $100 in finance to buy some shirts. And I learned that from Lloyd. And then you take, Mark was a perfectionist, and the numbers need to be correct every time. And he became that side of it was great. So Mark and Lisa had a great balancing point. And Aaron was an up and comer. And Aaron was a bit of both his mom and dad, and very much a visionary, but wanted to make his own stamp, and he was wild and crazy a little bit. And I could see the transition going on over there, because you've got, I called it the 3 tribes. You had Mark's tribe, Lisa's tribe, and Aaron's tribe. And if you weren't on the right tribe, you weren't going to make it long term. So for me, I was hesitant to go initially because of all that was working itself out automatically. Number 2 is, initially when they asked me, it was a Nissan store, and Nissan doesn't excite me, and wasn't really excited to go do that. Powersports is exciting. If it was the BMW store, or it was the, a Porsche store, I would have been super interested in going over and trying it. But at the time I was just hesitant, I was also really loyal to my people. I had grown from ground up. We had grown up together, all of us. And we had a tremendous team, and I really just didn't want to go do that. So I was hesitant for those reasons. And that deal fell through, and we went for a couple more years. And then Champ, because of they are an incredible operator in the auto space, got many opportunities to acquire more BMW stores in other states. So we started opening up and getting open points in different states. And they called me back over and said, we really need you to come over here and help, grow. We see a bigger, role for you, and will you do this? And, at that point I felt really, they had done a lot for me tremendously. I mean, they had given me an opportunity when no one else did at the time. And so I owed it to them. So, I said, absolutely, I'll come over and do it. So I went on vacation, and I came back and said, yeah, I'll do that. And initially I wasn't sure where my role was going to be, and they really wanted me to oversee a platform. But there was again a bunch of leadership changes over there. So they needed me in a store at a time. They were short a GM. And we were building a brand new Taj Mahal Honda store. So they said, we're going to have you go into Honda. We'll put you there for a period of time. And then once you, working there for a period of time, we'll elevate you to the executive level. So I ended up going off to NADA school and doing all that and working from here and there and moving over there. And then we built a new Honda car store, and I opened that up in 2015. And that store, when I say big Honda store, I mean, it was doing, at the time in 15, we were doing over 6,000 units a year. We had 42 salespeople, and I think we had 45 service technicians. I had 6 sales managers, 2 GSMs.
So how was that leap? I mean, here you go, you take your Fay Myers t-shirt off, and you get all suited up, and now you're working in the car store. And
this is your favorite part. This is your favorite part. I had to order some suits, so that was the first thing.
That's not my favorite part. I did not like that chapter of your life, because you were my motorcycle drug dealer, and you went to the car side, and now all of a sudden I had to deal with other people. But what was your takeaway? That's really what I'm getting at here from shifting from power sports to auto.
It really turned out to be a tremendous move. I mean, I reluctantly did the Honda store, and but the good part was, because I was on Honda Power Sports, transitioning to Honda Automotive was actually pretty easy, because it's Honda IN. It's very similar. And I say this, dealing with a single brand in the auto space, it was almost easy. And the amount of, manufacturer support is crazy. I mean, you have a rep that's in your store every week, as on the power sports side, they're in your store once a month, maybe. You have business development guys, you have regional guys, you have service and parts people. We had recall assistance. I mean, the amount of OEM support is crazy. And the ordering, manufacturers are very involved in your ordering, and you're only ordering for 45 days. I mean, it's so the stuff we do on power sports, we were building extensive spreadsheets with lots of data and trying to analyze. One of the things that Mr. Wallace said to me, so how do you do your ordering? And I said, yeah, well, we're going to order 167 CRF 450s. And if a nuclear holocaust happens, those bikes are still coming. We got to figure out how to sell them. And he looked at me like, you got to be kidding me. We're ordering stuff in some brands once a year, in certain segments. And it was just very different, for them. So when I went over there, the amount of tools and technology and data they have, to make good decisions, it really was, I hate to say it was easy. The challenge is still the people, and it's the mass amount of people. And, the consumer complaints are different, because their cars, they're something they have to have. So you get different aspects of what's going on. I would call it a tremendous learning experience, though. I mean, you got to see technology at work. Aaron, the son who now runs the company, completely, he developed and built by himself A to Z sync software. And that was designed so that a salesperson could operate and sell a vehicle utilizing every technology available into one portal and make it the transaction seamless for the customer. And being a part of that was tremendous. Watching him launch that was tremendous.
Hey, and in that vein, right? So you worked your way up from military academy into Fay Myers. You got yourself all into those positions. You got ownership. That you went to the car side. And then there's another transition for you, which is, you're talking about technology right now and being on the forefront of that. And one of the things that you're doing right now, that is having some really good success is one dealer lane, or ODL. So, I mean, as if you were not on 7 screens before and not paying attention to any goddamn thing in any room that you're in. Hey, let's throw in a software company, right? So, talk to us about ODL, One Dealer Lane, the genesis of it, where it came from, and where it's heading and where it is.
Okay, I'll try and do that in a short version, but got to work with A to Z Sync, got on future retail committees for Honda, and talked about the future of automotive retail at an extensive level. And because of our Honda store launching A to Z Sync, got to meet a lot of great people, and that went on a path where I was involved in helping ownership engage with Amazon and seeing the future of automotive retail, and just some tremendous things. And in that, I met a gentleman who is near to you, Michael Graves, who is a serial entrepreneur, owns many businesses, automotive, architectural companies, and he owns a few powersports stores as well, and in Steamboat and Craig.
And just an overall really great human being.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He reached out to me during this time and said, "Hey, I'm having some struggles with personnel and whatnot. Do you think we could take A to Z software and put it in my powersports stores up in the mountains?" And we had talked about it with Fay Myers a few times, but Fay Myers is a beast. I mean, it's a true beast. And we never really, I guess, took it too seriously. But as we were evolving and changing, the ownership and I talked about, well, could we make A to Z Sync fit in powersports, and could it be the next, evolution in powersports to do a single point of contact? Could that be a game-changing, saving move? And so we looked at it extensively. We actually had quite a few meetings on the whiteboard with the tech team from A to Z, and came to the conclusion that we could force it to work like most software systems in powersports are automotive based, because that's where they're born, because that's where the money is. What automotive dealerships pay for software is unbelievably more than what we pay. And they see the benefit. So we went down that path and couldn't make it work. And then we met a gentleman, ironically through all this, named Parm. And Parm was one of the original developers for App One. And App One was born in automotive, in used cars initially, and then it became the powering software for like Bass Pro Shops to sell power sports equipment. It was the first digital file transfer software in that space to allow an hourly employee sell a power sports equipment to somebody over the counter. And that company was bought and sold multiple times and ended up with Reynolds and Reynolds, and it got shelved. And so he was looking for a job. And we were developing also at this time our Year One agency, which is it's the warranty products that we sell in the automotive space with Safeguard International. Safeguard's one of the largest providers of that product in the country. And they were talking to Parm, and because they were big in the power sports and trying to grow in power sports. And so they flew Parm out, and we sat on a whiteboard together, me, Michael, and everyone in a room for a day, about what could we do for power sports software? Could we make A to Z Sync work? Could we do something else? And we drew it on a whiteboard, had dinner that night, talked for a while, and then he went on his way. And I went to Aaron and said, "This guy is genius. We need to hire him for A to Z Sync, or he could tremendously help us do a lot of things we're trying to accomplish." And we called and talked to him, and he didn't want to go to the automotive space either. He wanted to stay in power sports, marine, and RV. And so I called Michael and I said, "I think I have a guy that makes sense for us. If you really want to go down this path of building something, we should all get together." So we sat in a room and talked, brought him back out, talked. At this point, he had found a new job. And so it wasn't going well. So Aaron and I got on a plane, flew out to meet him in San Francisco. This is early COVID. And we convinced him of our idea. Let's bring him into A to Z Sync for a period of time, and then we'll start building a power sports software, and we'll raise money and capital for it. And he decided to come along. He wanted to do it. So he came out, and we took that whiteboard session, and we started drawing how we were going to change the power sports space with a software. And we raised a few $1 million and said, here we go. Well, went down that path, and Safeguard came in, and they were trying to win some business with marine stores and some of the other manufacturers. They were using automotive software to power their stuff, and they said, would you consider building this part first? So here was born ODL. Basically, we started building a rate and remittance tool for power sports dealers to come into the current version of what's happening in automotive. And it's, as you guys know, it's vastly different. So ODL is a software built specifically for power sports, marine, and RV, 100%. And that's what it's built for. And it's built to work in the environments that we have instead of what automotive has. And it's, the long-term vision is for it to be an end-to-end software that can help facilitate the transaction from start to finish.
Okay, what's the short term? What's its current status?
So it's currently up and running in 30 dealerships around the country. So it's not a lot. We're still, we just came out of the beta phases. We tested it for almost 18 months in about 8 dealers around the country. We started really in the rate and remittance, so the finance tool side. And then we created a menu. We initially wanted to try and possibly look at other menus. We looked at iTap. We looked at, there's so many of them. Darwin's. We had great meetings with those guys. They have a tremendous software piece. And we decided we didn't want to be a menu. We don't want to be a CRM. We want to be that middleware that allows you to be the single login point to move a transaction with less friction throughout the entire process. So we ended up, though, building our own menu out of necessity because tech stack gets to be expensive. You guys understand, every time you insert a piece of technology, you have to pay that technology a piece of your pie. And we all understand that in some of those great groups I learned from, Sam, the Doug Rudds of the world and the Rick Alcons, if I want to get $99 out of them a month, I'm going to have to scrape on them for 6 years to get them to understand why $99 makes sense. Getting money.
I think you mean $9 a month from Doug Rudd, not $99.
9 cents, a penny, a nickel.
But so, Jason, if I'm following the trajectory right, piece one is to get rate and remittance done, right? Legally, efficiently, fast, quickly, all the above, right? Step 2 is that we can then menu sell off the top of it so that we can now start making more profit with every F&I deal. So let's get it legal. Let's get the deal done. Let's roll the bike, whatever it happens to be.
Follow compliance, do all the things necessary to do it the right way. Yep.
Yeah. And so it simply allows all of this to happen digitally with one person and an ease of transaction for the customer.
Yeah. So the easier way to start is wherever you start your transaction, whether it be in your CRM, your DMS, or anywhere else, it then is pulled into one dealer lane. So it's a single, you're putting the information in once, and then it pushes itself all the way through from the start to the finish. You don't have to re-enter that anywhere else. You want to push to a bank. You want to take a credit app. Like we created a digital credit app that you can text a customer, email a customer. You can do a worksheet digitally. You can print it out if you want to and follow the old school process. We own our own signing tool. So again, tech stack costs. We don't have to pay DocuSign. We don't have to pay anyone for that. We actually own our own, signature tool. We own all of our own tech stack at this point. We do integrate with CRMs. We integrate if you want to stay with your menu, you want to stay with iTap, you want to stay with Darwin, anyone else. We fully support that. We don't want to be a menu system. We provide one to people that don't want to pay additional costs for that. CRMs, we integrate with multiple CRMs, DP360, eLeads, multiple other CRMs out there. We integrate fully with Lightspeed and have had some great conversations about furthering that relationship. It's the single sign-in point where you can see the entire transaction move throughout the dealership. I can push that credit app. If you submit it back to me, it'll automatically see your worksheet, grab the worksheet and push it to your finance department. Then the finance department can take that and push it straight to a bank and work the approval back instantaneously. And it really removes the friction. I mean, I've got salespeople today selling 8 motorcycles on a Saturday and not breaking a sweat. Probably the cooler part of what it can do in some of these smaller stores, there's 2 things. One is, sales managers can approve and deny deals from wherever they're at. If they're in the back unloading a truck, it's mobile, 100% mobile friendly. It pushes the deal to the sales manager, shows them the profitability of the deal, They can comment or push back to the salesperson no matter where they're at. It has text notifications, so it keeps the thing moving.
Does it allow for coaching? Like, is there analysis to find out where the deal broke down so that we can get involved and coach the guys on how to fix that issue?
So it has Power BI reporting behind it, which will actually report where the process is moving. My guys have been using it for going on 2 years now. And if you talk to any of them, they would never not want to have it. They can see where everything's at. They can see every credit app that's coming in. They can see every deal that's quoted. They can see everything in front of them on a screen. So they love it. Ironically, we have a direct login to a bank that we push deals straight to a bank into their LOS, which is their lending system. They can approve it and send it back to us. And we are now in the testing phases of full digital file transfer for funding. And if you talk to them on the other side, the lenders love it. He said, I was very skeptical about this. Now I want all my motorcycle dealers on the system because it speeds up the transaction for them as well. So it does a lot. The challenging piece is I don't have a 10-second elevator pitch because we have 4 different lanes. We have a sales lane, a finance lane, a product lane. We have different lanes that address each dealer. And, most dealers don't want to take on the full change management that's necessary to embed the technology. So we start in one lane and you grow out of it. And that's kind of the cool part too. We built every lane individually.
Hey, so it seems to me that the biggest problem, see what you think about this, the biggest problem that we have in the industry is we have so much software, so much technology that, I guess to your point, it's in one specific lane, right? It does this thing, or it does several things like at a C- D+ average, right? We don't have anything that's talking. We don't seem to have DMS or CRM systems that work both really well. And so your solution is trying to get everything integrated into one specific thing. Yes?
Exactly.
Was that a fair statement?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
Because Tony, how many times in our 20 clubs do we hear like the redundancy is exhaustive? You just have to enter it here and there and there. Yeah, and expensive.
Yeah, and expensive. Awesome. And so Jason, you and I and Sam have talked about this for, years and years and years. And it's finally it's come to fruition. You say it's in how many dealerships now?
It's in 30.
Okay, got it. And growing, yeah.
It powered the entire Sturgis event. The Sturgis Harley Davidson show this last Sturgis event.
Yeah, talk about that. Get in depth on that.
1,200 transactions plus 600 plus trades seamlessly. Like I said, it integrates to MotoMate, so you can push stuff to MotoMate. We're working on integrations to NPA, so you can get your information from NPA and sell it to NPA all out of our system. The NPA piece is not there yet. It's something we're working on, but we are in MotoMate. We're in other things, so it facilitated that entire transaction for them, and it digitized everything they were doing. They were using clipboards and pieces of paper and sticky notes. And you can do everything on an iPad, you can do everything on your phone, you can do it on a desktop. And if for the guys that want to follow the process, and there's guys that are tremendously successful, I talk consistently, you guys have them, the 10% net guys or 12 or 14% net guys that are still following Ed Lemko's 4-square process. If you want to print it out of the system, you can still follow some of that process. The cool part about the system is very much, when we built this, was to be very moldable to everyone's process.
Got it. Talk about how this can help, multi-rooftops or takes away friction.
So that's the stuff we're doing with Steamboat a lot, which is you get these medium-sized store. If you have a sales manager that's sick in a store, you can toggle it where it would route deals to another manager in another store. Finance managers, same thing. You can toggle for a finance person to work a deal, place the deal, and push it back to another store level. That to me is a huge savings. Eventually we're going to be in the full digital titling piece of it. So that's one part that's coming down the pipeline. We have so many things on the horizon to eliminate, I would say excess people necessary. So when you have multiple rooftops, you can do, many things from one spot. If you have a bigger store that has more people in it, more sales managers, you don't have to actually send that person to that store. They can route the deal so they can be approved and they can still operate in the other stores.
Interesting.
I can send you a finance menu or a sales menu to you on your phone or your iPad, and I can watch you on your screens, what you're doing, and talk you through it from my desktop. So if I send you a menu and you're clicking on things, it has brochures built in on the finance products. I can talk you through it. So if I was in one store and you were in another store and I needed to do it remotely, I could do all of that.
That
Crazy.
That sounds amazing. Why would you not want to have that? What's the pushback that you get from people who say no?
Well, and this is funny. We've had the software, for a while, and have been really honing it in to make it right before we take it to market. And now we're starting to take it to market. Technology, the power sports space has always been 10, 15 years behind the automotive space. And you guys see it tremendously in your 20 clubs, the variance of people in those groups. And I talk about this a lot. We use a CRM in automotive. We pay $5,000 a month for a CRM. We pay for CRMs in power sports. We pay $500-$600, maybe $700 for a CRM. So one is cost and understanding, the need for it. The other one is you got guys, like you said, have been 14% net. Why should I change? So power sports guys are slow at times to adapt. I would say our automotive group is on the cutting edge always of technology and change and being the first to do things. But power sports is a lot slower in that space, Sam. I mean, I see a lot of slow adoption to that stuff. They just don't want to change what they're doing.
Hey, let me ask you to put your Kreskin hat on right now. Where do you see? I mean, you're obviously ensconced in auto, which is cutting edge, and it's way far ahead, in my opinion. I've been reading a lot of stuff on kind of where things are going. Where do you see things going? Let's just say for the dealer model, right? Because we know as auto goes, so goes power sports, so goes marine, so goes RV. Where do you see things in 3-5 years?
I think there's a massive evolution that's happening right in front of us. And, AI, and there's a lot of technology. And I think one of the biggest problems we have all the time is people adapt technology, and technology doesn't change the process. I think Sam talked about this at one point. You go back to the 80s and how many cars were sold by a great salesman was 15. You add all the CRMs and all the software we have today, and what's an average sales guy sell? 15. But it's a lot like, do you need a dealer website? You guys have been around long enough to remember when dealer websites came out. Do you need to be on social media? I remember sitting through, Tony, one of your opening pieces of, sidelines or get left behind.
Yeah.
I think there's a big evolution happening. If you look at Harley and it's, big Taj Mahals, now they're starting to look at different options of where that's going to be long term. You look at the way our kids buy things. Do any of our kids buy things on anything other than their iPad or their iPhone, or they want to shop on that stuff? My children, my grandchildren, they're all buying and transacting.
Did you say grandchild? Did you say grandchildren?
2.
You're a grandpa?
I am a grandpa.
Damn.
I have 2 great grandchildren. They're
That's
the
awesome.
best. I get to sugar them up, buy them whatever I want, and give them back. They're the best.
That's cool. Who would have ever thought we've got to this point where we're talking about grandkids? Good Lord.
So they all transact differently. And I think we have to meet the customer where the customer wants to be met. And I think in power sports, you're seeing automotive starting to buy power sports stores because they're easy targets. Quite candidly, we don't have the systems and structures, and we're not committed to those things to evolve. And that to me is right in front of our face. You're seeing massive change.
What do you make of just the news that I heard this weekend with Volkswagen coming in and trying to go direct to customer?
The state of Colorado has filed a lawsuit against it. We all
Many have, right?
Yeah.
But do you see that?
I don't see that as a successful model. I don't see it working. It never has worked. Ford's gone in and bought stores over the years. There's lots of manufacturers that have tried this. They're not good at that. And it creates not as good of experience or benefit for the consumers. Dealers drive the prices down. Actually, dealers actually help the overall network or the overall consumer experience. So I don't see that as the right move. None of the manufacturers we have the girth to do that. What Tesla did changed everything, from that point forward. And why was Tesla successful? we talk about tech stack again. If you listen to anything from Ford, the CEO Farley talks about, we can't compete with Tesla because we have all these contracts for the infotainment centers and all the seat provider. Tesla builds everything in their system. They own the technology, they own the seats, they own the frames, they own everything. That's why he can drop prices by $5,000 and it doesn't even phase him. Ford has contracts that he owes Bose, and he owes the ABS system, and he owes all these different systems, and the tech stack cost gets expensive. Our automotive software does what ours does, and automotive software is $3,000 to $6,000 a month, depending on the tech stack. And ODL is $1,000. I think our high end everything is somewhere between $1,000 and $1,400 a month. And you can get a finance menu for $99 a month, and rate and remittance and digital tools and whatnot. It is, having that tech stack is important. So back to your original question, I don't think manufacturers have a chance in being successful and going direct. Personally,
nice.
But I think dealers have to evolve.
Completely. Well, where do people find information on ODL, One Dealer Lane? How can they get in touch and reach out?
There's a website, One Dealer Lane. You can go on there and request stuff. Obviously, reach out to you guys and give my contact. I'll get them in the right direction. Whatever I can do there, I'll help.
Cool. Right on, man.
Thanks, Jay. It's been a long time trying to get you on the pod.
See? Yeah, easy peasy, dude. You just had to get on and start chatting.
You just had to get on and do what you do at every group dinner. Just, start.
Wow.
I think Tony, we could have had him record it for 60 minutes last night and just send it to us, and no questions needed.
Love it. Jason White, like I said, I started off by saying a close friend and a longtime client and family member of Garage Composites. So thank you very much for coming on and spending time. I know you're a really busy guy.
Yeah, you came a long way since the IROC Z and skipping school to hang out with girls. And I love that you had to clarify it was girls in the beginning, just for the record. That was good.
Just for you, Sam.
Yeah, man. It's good to see you.
Jason White, the general manager of Fay Myers. That's what it's all. That's the title I'm always going to carry. Jason White, the general manager of Fay Myers. For Jason White and Sam Dansler, I'm Tony Gonzalez. This has been GarageCast. Have a fantastic Tuesday, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.